Epilogue, Who Are Yous? Epilogue, Who Are You? The cave at Omkeshwar is still there. It is on the south bank of the Nirmada River, in what is today the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, on a small island in the middle of the river that is shaped, viewed from the air, approximately like the Sanskrit syllable Om. The temple complex around the cave receives perhaps 1 million pilgrims annually. The cave itself is small. There is a low entrance. The ceiling slopes down sharply inside. A modern visitor can stand at the threshold, look in, and see roughly what the boy from Kerala saw at the end of his northward walk in approximately the year 800 of the Common Era. If you visit the site, and many readers of this book will, because the practice the book teaches is rooted in a tradition whose major sites remain functioning pilgrimage centers, you will find yourself, at some point, standing at the mouth of the cave. There will be other visitors. Some will be tourists, some will be pilgrims, some will be students of the tradition for whom the cave is a place of professional importance. You will stand there. The questions the cave asks of every visitor will be asked of you. Among the questions the cave asks is the question Govinda asked the boy. We have walked in these stories from the cave at Omkeshwar to the death at Kedarnath. We have followed the master across his career. We have watched the moves, the audience as prize, the Steelman, the commitment extraction trap, the analogical reframe, the strategic concession, the prostration on the road. We have heard the verses the encounters produced. The question that closes the telling is the same question that opened the master's career. Who are you? The boy at the cave answered in 7 verses. The first 6 were demolition, not this, not this, not this. The 7th was what survived the demolition. Together, the 7 verses constitute one of the greatest examples of a particular kind of philosophical move, neti, elenchus, the recursive interrogation that drives every alternative answer to collapse and leaves standing only what cannot be collapsed. The boy demonstrated the technique on himself. He passed the test. He was admitted to the school. The career that followed produced the corpus, the 4 monasteries, the disciples, the death at 32, the 1200 years of subsequent institutional life. Your career has not yet produced its corpus. You have not yet founded your monasteries. You have not yet trained your successors. You may live for many decades. You may live for considerably less. The duration is not under your control, and the concern with duration is, in the framework we have been training in, a distraction from the present work. The present work is to answer the question that closes the training. Who are you? What is the 7th verse for you, the thing that survives, after the 6 verses of demolition, as the thing you are not willing to give up regardless of what the inferential pressure does to all the alternatives? The answer matters. The answer matters because the answer determines what your career will defend. The technique is content neutral. The moves work in service of whatever positions you defend. The choosing of the positions is the deepest practice. The moves are the means by which the positions, once chosen, are advanced and protected against challenge. The form is the form Shankara used. 6 verses of demolition, 1 verse of what survives. The first 6 verses are the things you are not, everything you might mistakenly identify with, the categories you would want to subtract from any honest answer to the question of who you are. The categories will not be Shankara's. The 8th century categories of his answer, the mind, the intellect, the ego, the memory, the senses, the breath, the elements, the sheaths, were the categories of his philosophical training and his cosmology. The categories that fall away under honest scrutiny are the profession, the education, the family roles, the reputation, the political identifications, the body in its current condition. These are the common subtractions. What remains after the subtraction has done its work is the candidate for the 7th verse, the thing you are willing to defend regardless of cost, the position you will spend your career articulating and defending against challenge. That subtraction is hard. The hardness is not a defect. The hardness is the practice. Shankara's verses are accessible to us across 1200 years because they passed his version of the test in 800 CE, and they have continued to pass it for everyone who has rehearsed them since. The seventh verse, when it comes, is rarely what one expects. For some readers, it will be a specific commitment to a substantive position. I am the defender of liberal democracy, or I am the defender of the natural environment, or I am the witness against the persecution of religious minorities, or whatever your equivalent turns out to be. For some readers, it will be a more abstract commitment. I am the practitioner of clear thinking against confusion, or I am the holder of a particular tradition of inquiry, or I am someone for whom the truth is more important than the comfort. For some readers, it will be the recognition that the seventh verse cannot yet be specified, that the practice of the rest of your life is to find out what it is, and that the not yet knowing is itself the honest answer in the present moment. All three answers are admissible. What matters is that the question is taken seriously, the demolition attempted honestly, and what survives is what survives, even if what survives is the recognition that more work is needed. The seventh verse, in particular, often shifts as a life develops. What survived the demolition at 30 may not be the same as what survives at 50. The shift is not a failure. The shift is the development of the person who is asking. A note on what the seventh verse is not. The seventh verse is not a goal you intend to achieve. I am someone who will write 3 books on this topic by 2035 is a goal. It is appropriate as part of the career page. It is not the seventh verse. The seventh verse is what is, not what is to be done. The seventh verse is not a quality you wish you possessed. I am someone who is brave is an aspiration. It is appropriate as part of the work of becoming. It is not the seventh verse. The seventh verse is what is the case, after the demolition has done its work, not what one would like to be the case. The seventh verse is not a denial of all worldly engagement. Shankara's I am Shiva was a substantive metaphysical claim that in his system was compatible with founding monasteries, training disciples, and conducting 2.5 decades of public dispute. The verse was not a renunciation of action. It was the foundation from which the action could be carried out without distortion by the secondary identifications that the action might otherwise have generated. Your seventh verse, similarly, should be the foundation from which your career proceeds, not a withdrawal from the career. The seventh verse is, finally, not the same as Shankara's seventh verse. The Advaita identification with the Absolute was the substantive content of his philosophical position. It would be a category error for a non-Advaitin reader to claim it as their own without commitment to the underlying philosophy. The form is the inheritance. The substantive content is yours to determine. The form, the demolition followed by the assertion of what survives, is the technique. The technique transfers. The substance is what your honest demolition reveals. You stand at the mouth of the cave. Govinda has asked you the question. You have heard everything that the 8th century training would have given the boy by the time he was 10. The body work, the formats of disputation, the moves of attack and defense, the structures of strategy. You have not had the boy's intelligence. You may not have his concentration. You almost certainly do not have his proximity to a teacher of Govinda's quality. What you have had are the stories. The stories are not a substitute for any of these things. They are what is available to you now. They have shown you the moves the boy spent his career deploying, the forms the Nirvana Shatkam and the rest of his corpus modeled, the ethical posture the Manisha Panchakam established. What you do with them is your decision. The first decision is the one we are closing with. The decision is the answer to the question. The cave waits. There is no time pressure. The cave will be there next year and the year after, and for as long as the geological time of the Nirmada permits. There is, however, no avoiding the question, once you have heard the story in good faith. The question follows you out of the cave when you walk away from it. Shankara walked out of the cave at Omkeshwar in approximately the year 802 of the Common Era, after several years of training under Govinda. The seventh verse he had composed at age 10 had been refined into the foundation of what would become the Brahma Sutra Bhashya and the rest of the corpus. He walked north, toward Varanasi, then east, then back south, then in the great loops that would take him across the subcontinent 4 times in the next 20 years. The career, portions of which we have followed, ran from that walk to his death at Kedarnath at 32. The career was made possible by the cave. The cave is the answer to the closing question. Your own career, whatever it turns out to be, will be made possible by your own version of what the cave produced. The version will not be the Nirvana Shatkam of the boy from Kerala. The version will be yours. Begin where the master began. Who are you? The telling ends here. The practice continues for as long as you are in active engagement with the world. Omkeshwar 798, Kedarnath, c. 822, the present.